Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining session number 79 of Block&Wine. I've been invited yesterday evening, and thank you for that, Daniel, to give a session about COVID-19 and blockchain. I wrote an article for the Comparative Media Studies blog like 4 days ago, and some people like Daniel read this article actually, and so he thought it's quite a good idea to spread the word. So I'm going to share my screen now for the presentation. So the title of the talk today is What Role Can Blockchain Technologies Play During the COVID-19 Crisis, and obviously beyond that. And like the next 35 minutes, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm going to give a short summary of my work at MIT, because I think that's quite of the basis for my ideas, how we can use blockchain technologies now in the COVID-19 situation. Then I'm going to introduce some prerequisites that are needed, that my thoughts and my ideas would work at the end of the day. I will discuss some use cases and give a short summary. And after that, of course, I love to have a fruitful discussion with all of you. So my life, it's basically, I feel at home, or I am at home in 3 different countries. My main job is at MIT at the Comparative Media Studies department, where I research blockchain technologies in education, and I'm going to talk about that in a bit. My home university in Austria is the Danube University, Donau-Universität Krems, where I have been heading the Center for Applied Game Studies for almost 10 years. And in Malta, I helped to set up the Emerging Technologies Lab for the Malta Information Technology Agency, and I was the contracted blockchain consultant in 2018 and 2019. And in Austria, I also am co-owner and co-founder of the Picapipe GmbH. And with the Picapipe GmbH, we are building like cutting-edge prototypes. And we won the Austrian Blockchain Award with a gamification called Hot City recently. So my project at MIT, it's called Blockchain Technologies and Their Impact on Game-Based Education and Learning Assessment. It's funded by the Austrian Academy of Sciences, and now the extension is funded by Max Kade. So Max Kade was also the original sponsor of the program together with the Austrian Academy of Sciences, and now the extension is funded by Max Kade only. We have to go now and look through the eyes of an eagle. And in my case, for blockchain education, my goal is to design a prototype for game-based learning and assessment, for e-learning and assessment, and for in-person and online conducted oral exams. And I'm going to give you a glimpse into the work that I've done so far. And for the game, it's online, you can try it. And for the e-learning, it's currently in the next iteration, so in about 2 weeks, it will be possible to, so you can now play the quiz, but the blockchain part will be online again in like 2 weeks from now. For Gallery Defender, you will see the link later. So it's your homework to play the game. You can start the game, and then you have to input your Ardo address, or you can use our default account. So if you don't have a testnet Ardo address, just use the default account to see the blockchain magic. We have, of course, here an issue, and this issue is something that I'm going to trigger in the next month. We obviously do not know who is actually the owner of this Ardo address. So we have to believe that this person is really who he or she pretends to be. So when you enter your address, you can learn how the game works. It's for the age group K-12, and it's about arts and arts movements. You can practice the game, you can play the simulation. It's like the exam, but without storing the grades. And you can play the assessment or take the assessment. And when you take the assessment, you will be asked, are you sure that you're going to take the assessment, because it's going to be recorded on blockchain. If you just like to play around, we have this demo scene where you can click and just trigger all blockchain transactions directly. For the game, very short, you play the owner of a gallery and you have to defend your art against a thief. So it's about knowledge of the art styles, and then you need 5 victory points or the maximum of 15 rounds. And after that, you get a grade. So the grade is, in this case, an A, 100% was correct in 330 seconds. And now on blockchain, you see that so in the game engine or on other connected with the game are several million types of like empty tokens, so to say, as you see it here, the name of the tokens and the asset ID. And every time a user passes the test, one token is being sent to the address of the user with the information of the grade attached. And obviously the information of the grade attached is encrypted because we don't want to have this kind of information public for everyone to see. So now we are here at the address from the learner who just passed the test. You enter your passphrase, and then you encrypt the message. And as you see, it's 330 seconds, an A grade. And this also generates a shared key. And that's a pretty good thing, because at the end of the day, we like to share the results with others, like the future boss. And in this case, you can give the shared key to your future boss. He gets access to this particular grade. And so he can verify that actually you passed the exam. What's missing, again, not only from the side of who is the user, but also who is the issuer, that you have here a digital certificate, a qualified digital signature from the issuer of the grade, which could be the school, the university. You can have the curriculum attached to what was needed to actually pass the exam, etc., etc. So there are many, many other things to consider, and this would be like maybe a 2 hours talk just about this particular project. So we created a token for the learner. We created a token for the teacher with additional information and the gamification part. So if you get an A grade, you get a digital voucher. You can redeem it for like a digital poster or something. And we created also the verification token with an approval model, because we do not want that the learner has the possibility to send the token to another address. So it's really important, think about super glue, that the token is always sticked with your grade on the account of the learner. And this is also something that we need later on when we talk about how to use tokens to solve or to help in the COVID-19 situation. So here is the link. As you can get the slide decks later from Daniel, I guess, or just write it down, gallery-defender.architect.texas-A&M-university.edu, because very decent developers from Texas University actually created the game together with me. They are partners of my project. The second part, and here we also use the other blockchain, but we wanted to try something else from the technical perspective, is the e-learning and assessment quiz. It's the same structure. You can practice, test yourself, take the exam. When you take the exam, you enter your other wallet address, you get points. And then, and this is something, as I said, a bit different, but we wanted to test it, how it's working. So every time someone finished the test, we actually issue or automatically a singleton asset, a unique asset is issued on the blockchain. You see it here in this line. Then a message is attached to the token, but it's not the grade. It's just like further information: who is the sender, where does the token come from, etc., etc. But the grading itself is not in the message. The grading is in the asset properties of the issued asset. And then after this process, as you see, it takes like 2.5 minutes. The asset is transferred to the address of the learner. And then you see here the public message containing the source of where the token comes from. And then in the token properties, you see the points. So you see here it's 98 points. And this matches the 98 points I passed when I took the exam. So for blockchain and education, there are, of course, some other use cases besides e-learning, besides game-based learning. And I don't have an extra slide for that, but for the verbal exams, it's quite simple. So a learner takes the exam, you ask him or her some questions, and then at the end, both agree on a grade, let's say sehr gut, and then the teacher and the learner sign digitally that they accept the grade, and while signing that they accept the grade token is stored on blockchain. So you can use blockchain in school for many other purposes. That's like a quantitative research I did recently, asking blockchain specialists, users, teachers, what they think, what they consider blockchain to be useful in the classroom. And the results were like voting for the student body, for the school boy, the scholarship management, automatic payments, the digital class book, and the whole enrollment process. Very important in the US, the SAT results. So as you know, like a year ago, there were the stories that they have been, so there was some fraud regarding the results because some millionaires paid the SAT officers to give their kids better results, and competence profiles of the learners. So this is what we have to consider in regarding of authentication, who is actually behind it. So like, as we know in Austria from the Handysignatur and the citizenship card, it's issued by the Austrian government via the Austrian Trust Center, or we also have in Austria via the Staatsdruckerei, the digital travel documents. So then obviously a school itself can have a signature that represents the school, operated by the principal. Each different teacher can have a Handysignatur, a qualified signature. And actually students need also a digital authentication system so that we can be sure that the students are actually taking the exams. What can be stored on blockchain? It's for the education part, the exams, the single subjects, the annual certificates, and at the end of the day, the graduation diploma. And that all should be possible to share with third parties via the shared key. So now let's turn to COVID-19 and the learnings from my blockchain education project. And it is that you need to combine digital identity and blockchain for this kind of applications. That's truly important. And that's maybe something where most of the blockchain projects we know lack a bit, because you really, while the storing on blockchain is safe and you cannot manipulate the blocks, and there are a lot of positive aspects, we also need to prove the digital identity of the recipient and the sender of those tokens. And the next step would be to combine the digital identity and the blockchain with your digital agents. This is also a project I'm conducting at the moment, but this would also be a separate talk. Just one sentence, the project is about that we have our digital agents that work or will work on our behalf, and we have to be sure what those digital agents are actually doing on our behalf. And so we use the digital identity of the owner of the agent. The digital agents get sub-signatures assigned, and what the digital agents are doing will be actually stored on blockchain. So now with COVID-19, we're all in the same boat. We're all having this virus around, the rich and the poor. And we have to think about some situations where blockchain can help facing the situation, or can improve it, or can ensure certain aspects in a better way for the citizens. So the prerequisites for the use cases I'm going to present in a minute is that we use a public blockchain, or at least a combination of private consortium-based blockchains and the public blockchain, meaning that after a certain period, the results from the private blockchains, the hash is stored on the public blockchain, so that you limit the manipulation on the private blockchain at the end of the day. We also have to consider that the tokens that we create for the use cases cannot be retransferred to other users freely, and that the issuer cannot manipulate the tokens that the system sent to the user. Like with the grades I showed before, it's very important that like when you have a certificate that you have antibodies for COVID-19, that you cannot just send the certificate to someone else. But of course, give access rights to see the proof that you have the antibodies. Then the transaction fees of the network have to be paid by the issuer or by the operator of the system, like the government or non-profit organizations. So everything we do, we need to ensure that the users, the citizens, don't need to possess any kind of cryptocurrencies. And we talk about that in a minute, that they maybe don't even know how blockchain works in detail. Maybe they don't even have to go and create their own wallet address on, like as we know it, typical blockchain wallets that we use. Well, not that complicated, but also not that simple for the daily user, so to say. So it's very important that the owners or the issuers they pay the transaction fees and take care that the usability is as easy as possible. Messages are sent have to be encrypted, so privacy is of utmost importance, obviously, for all these use cases. Shared keys, as we had it before, are needed to share the information and give access rights to the information on the token. And that's something what I truly like with the other blockchain is that we have the possibility that the message attached to the token can be deleted at a certain block height. So there might be use cases where you by design say, okay, only the proof of the token has been created and sent remains, but after a certain period, 5 years, 7 years, 14 days, whatever, we even delete the private message attached to the token. And I think what's also a very important aspect is that the users are able to run a full node on their own on a device like a smartphone or on inexpensive hardware like a Raspberry Pi or just on their laptops or computers, so that you always know that you have the ownership of your data. And then, as I already said, the availability of digital qualified signatures or other secure forms of proof of digital identity. And then the concept that I created for this part, I explained before with the digital agents, which I call the electronic ID wallet. So basically, this is a wallet, and that's the next thing I really try to do together with Celorida, with Ardor and NXT, is that we make it available that you can use your digital signature to actually sign a wallet address so that you can prove that you are the actual owner of that address. So this would look like that. You have your electronic ID wallet. You have different forms of verification of you as a person, like the handy signature or any other eIDAS qualified signature or self-sovereign identity, or maybe even in the lowest possible form, your verified Twitter account. With that, you sign that the wallet belongs to you. In that wallet, you hold different tokens. This could be, of course, also cryptocurrencies, but in our case, it would be the tokenized health data. It would be your learning credentials, maybe even access to municipal services. Then you have a multi-chain processing system so that persons that need to have access on certain data can actually get access. So for example, if you go to your next waste deposit station, your EID wallet is connected with the central register where you live, and it also has the token that you're allowed to deposit the waste there, and then you just show the QR code. The service officer scans your QR code, and you're allowed to deposit your waste there. The same you can do with health data, and you can even split the health data, and that's also a project we designed in Malta, is that you can split the health data into different sections, and you can also design that if certain events occur, like you have an accident with the car and you really can't, talk or do anything, then it's triggered that your health data is available for the emergency doctor helping you at this particular case. But if you split your health data and if you split all the different diseases, your blood tests, etc., into different tokens, and then you have like a set of cards, and you can give certain data so you can basically mix your set of health data that you want to give to a third person, because not every doctor needs to see your whole history of diseases and so on that you had before. So if we let's continue with the last two things that we need to assume. If maybe in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, we can assume that all companies and the government and the citizens can handle the private key, but at the moment it's a bit too early, I guess, for that. So under specific circumstances, it can be defined that the private key itself is only known to the system, and the operators on the blockchain wallet of the individual users, and the individual users are controlled by a regular user password system. That's, for example, how we did it at the Hot City app. That the users use an app, and actually with their regular password that can be resetted, the shared key basically triggers the transactions on the blockchain. So let's talk about the use cases that came to my mind the last weeks. So in Austria, especially, I think you read the stories that the Austrian government bought masks in China for 1,000 Tyrol and Austria, and most of the masks were not really useful. So that's more, on the one hand, verification of authentic goods. So now those masks, it could have been a fraud by the producer of the mask, so they actually send masks to us that are not useful, or they have been maybe changed or stolen during transport and replaced with dummy masks. And then, of course, the mapping of delivery routes. As you also heard the stories that the Germans blocked masks and other technical equipment that was supposed to come to Austria because the Germans set an export stop for medical goods. But now if you use blockchain technologies, you can actually define in the smart contract that the goods have been bought before the export stop has come into place, for example. For the verification from the producer, there is a company in Malta, they are called Trictic, and the idea is that you use a chip that we have in our passports. So basically when they package the goods, and each chip is registered on the Bitcoin blockchain. So when you seal the single packages, you use this chip and the seal, and then when on the way someone breaks the seal, obviously it cannot be sealed again, because even if they use another chip, it would be impossible to reassign the exact same asset ID of the chip on the Bitcoin blockchain. The good thing is you now have on the one hand the chip, and you know it's from which producer the chip has been placed on the package. And on the other hand, with this information, the producer can, of course, assign additional information using any other blockchain system, for example, the contract data itself. And for the transport, it's quite easy. So basically, there are certain points that now the truck driver is putting into the system manually, or even on a piece of paper. And that's only on a central database, so it can be frauded easily. And if this data is put on blockchain, obviously, it cannot be changed afterwards. But of course, if they need to change something, they just do a re-entry. And then we have both entries on the blockchain. And then obviously the newest entry is the entry that should count, unless the newest entry is a fraudulent entry. But then we have the original entry and can have a look what really happened. What's also really important, the second part, is if we talk about fake news prevention, then the origin of content. So like 3 or 4 days ago, we had on 2 different TV shows in the US, a short video scene. And on the one TV station, they said, oh my God, it's in Italy, it's horrible. And the other TV station used the same footage and said, oh my God, this is in New York and it's so horrible. So if media producers actually digitally sign their content and put the proof of that they are the owner of the content and that this is original created content, and they put all that information on a token, then media stations that use the content. So at the moment, media stations are actually doing that. Every time they make a short clip, there is a list available of where the content comes from. But again, this is just a centralized database, and it would truly help if media stations that call themselves high-class stations would switch to blockchain and would ensure that the material they use is not deep fakes or is not reused in another purpose. And then we have the third part, and this is voting. And I was truly shocked when I read 3 weeks ago that the European Union is doing the very first digital voting, and that was conducted like in the way that the politicians received an email with a PDF. They had to print the PDF, they had to tick the box, they had to scan or make a photo of what they voted for, and they had to send this email from their official address to one particular address from the European Union, and then one administration officer counted the votes. And I think this is truly horrible. I'm a fan of the European Union, but in this case, it was truly horrible that they are not using any kind of secure voting, but just emails, that they have to print something, make a photo, because there are so many great blockchain voting solutions on the market. And if you like to play around with NXT or Ador later, it's even out of the box there. It has limitations, like that the votings can be only like conducted within 2 weeks or stuff like that in the demo version. But you see that it is possible to create such tools. So for political votes, all those votes would need to be transparent, obviously. So today in the Nationalrat in Austria, you ask for the votes, the people raise their hands, then they count the hands, or maybe they have a digital system where they press a button, and we need to know which member of the parliament, which member of the Nationalrat voted for which particular purpose. That's truly important. So in our case, it would be, again, the qualified signature, where the person casts the vote, and then we know exactly who voted for which purpose. For companies, when you have a board member voting now and you cannot meet in the boardroom, this needs to be a bit different. So we need, on the one hand, to create tokens that verify that the person has the right to vote. They hold that vote then in their, again, EIT wallet or in their wallet where they cast the vote. And then we need things like shuffling. So basically that the casted vote comes at the end of the day from any other address in the network. So we do not know who actually voted for which purpose, but we have the final results immediately. So this is, for example, like something I did with Meta, with the summer students, as like so basically as a trial or as to test something, and we managed that the employees from Meta were able to receive such a voting token with their position, and then they can easily click on a button, and then the system knows this person is eligible to vote. And this is really done by me and 4 students within like 3 or 4 weeks. So when you have the resources and the developing teams, something like that in a high secure way would be quite easy to develop if governments understand that it is necessary to go for such things. And then we have the most complicated thing, which is the public elections, of course. On blockchain, if there would not be the COVID-19 situation, my proposal would be that you basically go still into the school and you show your passport, but then instead of the piece of paper to tick the box in a voting app, you are able to vote to cast your vote. But again, you use everything that we know and research regarding privacy, because obviously it's very, very important that the citizens, that there's no chance that you know which citizens voted for which particular party. Then something we have to discuss, because the Staatsdruckerei, I did this press release 3 or 4 days ago, that they work on the digital vaccination certificate. I saw it coming already from the papers that I read on the topic, and the main idea is, and we have to discuss this from a political aspect, from a democratical aspect, and from an ethical aspect. Do we really want that? Do we want a digital certificate that shows that we either received the vaccination or that we already had COVID-19, so we have antibodies? And how can such a certificate look like? So I think on blockchain, this would be a good opportunity to do so, and I discussed this quite in detail in my blog posting. But I think before we do actually design a prototype, we need to discuss if this is something we should go for, because when it's really there, when it exists, and when people can use it, we might have to use it, and we might need this to, attend an event, to take a flight or whatever. So I see a lot of problems there, actually. The digital handshake apps, if you live in Austria, you know the Stop Corona app, and you know the issues that have been discussed the last weeks, that even information is sent to US servers before you even agree to the terms and accept the terms of usage. They are going to put it open source the next days, even maybe today, they said earlier today in a press announcement. But there's quite a good approach from MIT that I also described in the blog article that tries to not to do most of the mistakes the Austrian solution maybe did, so to say. And my idea how we can use blockchain for that to even help even more regarding the privacy aspect is that on your personal smartphone, obviously you collected the chips, so these are the unique codes that your Bluetooth sends and receives the whole day. And at midnight, your smartphone, and you're not even logged in with your email address, you're not logged in with your name or telephone number. Basically, when you install the app, it just says, I like to collect the chips, and you say yes. And then every night you click on the button transmit, and when you click on the button transmit on blockchain, as we saw with the Gallery Defender quiz app, a singleton token is being created, and in the singleton token, which has a unique ID, all your chips are connected as public message, and there it is absolutely impossible to reconnect the asset ID of the chip to you as a person. Only locally on your smartphone, the asset ID gets transmitted, and for this process, obviously data is being sent, but here you need the highest possible security standards that not regular hackers at least can get access to this kind of information. But even when the chip is sent to your smartphone, again, there is no information from your side like your name or your telephone number. You only work with random ID numbers. And then we have the fraud prevention. I think this is going to be a big issue the next weeks when governments roll out the antibody tests, and then you receive an email with an invite from the government that you either have to go somewhere, to be tested, or it says that some Red Cross person is coming to knock on your door to do the test. And we had this April Fool joke, they said, on the 1st or 2nd of April. So when in one of the smaller cities in Austria, someone wrote a fake email that they have to come to such a test. So this was supposed to be a joke, but of course you can use it in a very fraudulent way, that people get access to your apartment, that people steal your stuff, that people maybe punch you or whatever. And I think it's really important that we install things that safeguard the citizens. So in this case, again, this is just a dummy asset I created to show it. Let's say we have 10 million citizens in Austria, so it's 10 million Austria test invite assets. And every time a person gets invited to come and take such a test, signed with the Amtssignatur that you can verify on the RTR website, okay, this is issued by the Austrian government. Then you get your invite text. You can respond and call a telephone number, enter a secure code, or if you have a handy signature, a digital identity, you can go to a website, sign in with your digital identity, and click when it's the best for you to come and where you like to go to take such a test. So from the perspective of the user, you would receive the invite, you would need to enter your secret, and then you see the text message. So obviously that the private information of the text message is not an unencrypted public message. Then applying for state aid, and that's the second last thing. A lot of people, especially if you have a small company or if you work in any job where you were not able to actually work on the premises, like if you are a hair cutter or working with people, you have to apply for state aid now. And I think doing so using blockchain technologies and digital IDs could speed things up for you. And also it would be extremely helpful for the government to check if the person apply for it in an honest way or in a fraudulent way, because they just want to get as much money as possible from the government. And then something that really was a big issue today, because the Austrian university said that it's impossible in Austria to get access to the COVID-19 statistics. We don't know. So in Austria, we have the IMS system, but that's a closed system. So just people are entering data in the system. How many people have been tested positive? How many people died? Are they really persons that died because of COVID, or did they had COVID when they died? And so it's really hard in Austria. Obviously, we believe the Austrian government and we believe the state, so we believe the statistics. But as this is a closed system and as it's not shared, it's difficult to do research. Some spokespersons from Austrian universities complained today. So again here, and I described it again in a quite proper way, I hope, in my blog, it's possible that if all governments use a certain blockchain system and enter the data without revealing, obviously, privacy data of the persons tested, it would be much easier to compare and to see what's going on, again, from an eagle-eye scope on the whole planet. So in my blog posting, I collected a couple of questions that you should ask yourself if you like to either use blockchain connected with health data, or if you try to build such an application. And I hope that this set of questions is useful for you if you think about it, write about it, or build something. And as I'm already talking for 35 minutes, I say thank you very much. Here's the link to the blog. It's also in Hop-in, in the original link. You can just click on it and read my article. And this is my personal website on the MIT web space, where you can basically get an update on my projects. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to discussing together. So I hope it's not just a Q&A to me, but a discussion between all of us, because I guess that most of you are maybe even more blockchain experts than I am. So I hope that I can even learn from you. And thank you, Daniel, for the invite again.